Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting for the City of Reading for a special session here on February 3rd, 2021. Please join me in a prayer and our pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have the council member roll call, please?
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Gertz?
Here.
Mr. Lynn?
Here.
Mr. Albrecht?
Here.
Mr. Lindeman?
Here.
Mr. Fischescher?
Here.
Mrs. Edichica? Here.
We'll go ahead and go to reading of our resolution. This is legislative only meeting tonight.
A resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a settlement and release agreement with the Reading Community City School District.
Chris.
Can we read the whole thing?
I don't have a problem with that. Carla, do you have that queued up?
If
Are
there
you
were
looking-
any additions to it, I don't have any of the additions.
Are you looking for the ordinance or the agreement, Tony?
Well, first of all, I think that what I understand is there's got to be an addendum or an amendment to the present resolution. I thought maybe Mr. Braun wanted to comment on that. He submitted some new information. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, I circulated to everyone the revised copy of the settlement and release agreement that included the 4 additions that you requested. Are you referring to what happened earlier today?
Not at this moment. I'm referring to as, I guess.
So these would be the changes that were made at an earlier meeting that we asked to be put in.
That's correct. And I circulated those changes to everyone. If you want, I can go through those changes.
Okay, that'd be fine. You can just do.
If we read the whole ordinance and the settlement agreement, all the public would know where every person's position would be, and then you could highlight the changes. I thought as we were reading it at some point, Joe. I think all citizens ought to know what the content of everything is.
Carly, did you get an email from Mr. Braun today? You just circulated the settlement, correct?
I didn't get anything today other than your agenda.
Okay. I believe I have both, so I could go ahead and be the reader.
I can read it if you would want me to, and I can highlight the changes when I did that.
Okay, I'll let you read the settlement, and I guess I'll read the ordinance.
Resolution.
Resolution, yeah. That I don't know if I have the latest then, because mine says ordinance here that I get picked up. And Randy, do you have the latest?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and read? I think
The resolution actually hasn't changed.
Okay.
The resolution hasn't changed.
Okay, so we don't need to read
It's strictly the agreement.
Okay, Mr. Brown, go ahead and read the settlement.
It's titled Settlement and Release Agreement. This settlement and release agreement is entered into by and between the City of Reading, Ohio, the city, and the Reading Community City School District, the school district, collectively the parties. Whereas a dispute has risen between the City of Reading, the city, and the Reading Community City School District, the school district, related to certain utility lines that were not placed underground on the property where the new high school was constructed, the dispute. And whereas on or about May 27th, 2020, a lawsuit was filed in Hamilton County Common Pleas Court, captioned City of Reading, Ohio versus Reading Community City School District, case number A2001996, related to the dispute. And whereas the city and the school district believe it is in the best interest of both organizations to resolve the dispute by entering into the agreement. Now, therefore, in consideration of the mutual promises, covenants, and undertakings set forth below, and other good and valuable consideration, the receipt and sufficiency of which the parties hereby acknowledge, the parties hereby agree as follows. Number one, utility relocation and cost. The city and the school district agree to pay equal shares of the cost of relocating the Duke Energy, Spectrum, and Cincinnati Bell utility lines underground that are currently located on the property where the new high school is located near Bolser Avenue. This is an addition, this sentence. The city's payment under this agreement shall be made from Fund 827. That ends the addition. A drawing depicting the utility lines to be relocated underground as part of this agreement is attached as Exhibit A and incorporated herein by reference. The Exhibit A diagram I sent to you is the second edition. The total cost to relocate the utility and lines underground is estimated to be $49,788.58, and the city's payment to be made under this agreement shall not exceed 1/2 of this amount. That is a new addition, that the city's payment shall not exceed 1/2 this amount. The work to be performed relocating the utility lines shall be performed by a contractor selected by the utility providers. A breakdown of the estimated cost for the relocation of the utility lines is attached as Exhibit B and incorporated herein by reference. The TIF agreement, Section 2. The school district agrees that it shall support the city granting a 100% tax increment real property tax exemption, the TIF exemption, for a period of 30 years for the former Dow Chemical property and I changed the word to shall, enter into a tax incentive compensation agreement with the city approving the TIF exemption, the TIF agreement. The terms of the TIF agreement, including the amount of compensation to be paid to the school district in exchange for approval of the TIF exemption, shall be separately negotiated by the parties. The parties agree to negotiate in good faith, and approval of the TIF exemption and the TIF agreement will not be unreasonably withheld by either party. The initial information related to the project indicates that compensation in the amount of 25% of service payments in lieu of tax revenues will be proposed. And while neither party has agreed to this compensation amount, both parties agree that this is a reasonable initial offer and further agree that the project cannot make whole compensation to the school district and agree that such would not be reasonable for the Dow project. 3, released by the city. In consideration of this agreement, the city hereby releases and fully discharges the school district from any and all claims, obligations, duties, responsibilities, causes of action, damages, suits, debts, and demands of whatsoever kind or nature in law or in equity, which the city has or ever had, whether known or unknown, including without limitation those arising out of or relating to the dispute. 4, released by the school district. In consideration of this agreement, the school district hereby releases and fully discharges the city from any and all claims, obligations, duties, responsibilities, causes of action, damages, suits, debts, and demands of whatsoever kind or nature in law and equity, which the school district has or ever had, whether known or unknown, including without limitation those arising out of or relating to the dispute. Dismissal of action. The city shall file an entry of dismissal with prejudice, dismissing all claims relating to the lawsuit involving the dispute. The parties will split the court costs. Enforcement of the agreement, Section 6. This agreement shall be governed by the laws of the state of Ohio. The parties agree that the Hamilton County Common Pleas Court shall maintain jurisdiction over the enforcement of the agreement and any disputes related thereto. 7, no admission. The parties acknowledge that this agreement is a compromise of the disputed claims and shall not be construed as an admission of liability on the part of either party. 8, the entire agreement. This agreement sets forth the entire agreement between the parties hereto and fully supersedes any and all prior agreements or understandings, whether oral or written, between the parties pertaining to the dispute. Any amendment or modification of this agreement must be in writing and executed by both parties. 9, counterparts. This agreement may be executed in one or more counterparts, each of which shall be considered an original instrument, and all of which taken together shall constitute one and the same agreement. Execution of this agreement may be completed through an exchange by facsimile or electronic transmission of the page or pages containing electronic signatures of the party. 10, other actions. The party shall execute any and all documents necessary or appropriate to effect the terms of this agreement in a reasonable time period. And then there's signature lines for each party, the certification of the clerk of council, and approval by legal counsel as to form for both entities.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Braun.
I had a question, if I could.
Go ahead.
Mr. Braun, the item 2, the TIF agreement, just so the public understands, and I understand, what you're placing, there is no TIF agreement. There is no TIF at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what we're talking about is a future a mission that the school will cooperate with a tax incentive financing is what that abbreviation stands for. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So the 25% that we're talking about, it's 30 years that, so right now, what I understand from our economic development director and what people have told me is that the property up there is not very valuable, but of course, if there's a great improvement upon the property, then the taxes would go up for the real estate tax purposes for both the school and the city. Is that correct?
That is correct, and it would be based on the increased value of the improvements made to the property.
Yes, but all the taxes that would be paid by the company would go into the infrastructure for the use on the property. Is that how that tax and incentive financing works? Is that, am I correct?
TIF or tax increment financing revenue that is secluded into a separate account can be used for that property, but the Ohio legislature has also expanded it to include things such as police cars, fire trucks, salaries. So it's more than just going into that property, but it does include improvements to that property that would otherwise be private.
Okay, and the 25%, was that saying that the school would only give up, not only, would give up 75%? They will in fact get 25% of the money that comes in directly to the school? Is that what that 25% is all about?
At least 25%.
Yeah, so it could be higher, really, I guess, is what you're telling me.
Sorry, excuse me real quick. I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm getting messages saying they can't hear us on ICRC, like on TV when they're watching from home.
Well, I don't know what I can do about that.
Yeah,
At
that
this
would
point,
be-
I will take a look at that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Drew.
but anyway, Mr. Braun, so this, I'm not sure if this absolutely requires the school then. I know they were saying they weren't going to cooperate with any kind of, what do we call it, tax incentive financing if we didn't drop this lawsuit. Was that some of the discussion that was going on while this was being negotiated?
That's correct. That's why we're including this provision to ensure cooperation and a reasonable result.
And our goal from the economic development director from our previous meeting, where we're hoping to get maybe 300 to 400 jobs up there, if I remember correctly. And that was troubling to me that this, I'm glad you put it in there. This ties it down much more effectively. Now, and I do appreciate the additional material you put in here. I think it helps us more. So the most that we will pay is 20 or 50% of whatever that is, $49,788, or approximately $25,000. Is that correct?
Yes, it's just under 25,000.
Now, the other thing that I was concerned about, I got a call from the property owner who has taken initiative through Mr. Rob Thuman. And I did do some research on Mr. Thuman. He's a highly qualified trial attorney, and I guess he was getting into it pretty good. I did get a copy. It was sent to me from my constituent as well for the action that they're taking. So I understand there was some filing today that he made. Can you explain what that was and what transpired?
I can provide a limited amount of information in a public setting because there is a pending action. But yes, two City of Reading residents filed a verified complaint seeking a temporary restraining order against this council to prohibit you from entering into the settlement agreement and or holding this meeting this evening to vote to approve that settlement agreement and sign it. That was filed at approximately 1 o'clock today in Hamilton County Common Pleas Court. Ironically, the same judge that has our action against the school district happened to be the equity judge this month. And as a result, he was the one that heard our oral arguments. He scheduled them for 3 o'clock today. And the schools council, myself, as well as Mr. Thuman, who I agree is very competent counsel. He argued on behalf of
the way, as you are too, Joe. I have a lot of respect for you.
Well, we argued for a solid hour in front of Judge Nestor. And after hearing all of the arguments of the parties, Judge Nestor declined to issue a temporary restraining order against the city. And that's the only reason that we're able to have this meeting tonight. And it's the same reason the school district will be able to have their meeting tonight, is because that TRO to prohibit the approval and execution of that was denied. Without sharing too much about our litigation strategy on that, I do want to point out that in his decision, I took notes. Since there's no written decision, it was recorded on Zoom. Judge Nestor said that after reviewing this settlement and allowing it to go forward tonight for a vote, he said the removal of 2 out of 3 polls ain't bad. And he attributed that, I can't remember, to a poet, I believe. And he also said that he believed it was in the best interest of the public intent to allow the members of city council and the school district to make this decision. And in doing so, he denied that request for a TRO. Had he ruled otherwise, we might not be meeting this evening.
Now, does the residents, the citizens, still have any right to go forward with their matter, though, before the judge concerning their motions for intervention, as well as the potential of, I guess, filing a, I'm not sure I understand all the content. I just got a copy of it, going forward with the possibility of a mandamus action, which would require the city to take action to enforce the planned development district as was originally approved. They are still permitted to go forward. Is that correct?
I think the way I would choose to answer your question is that I think the best course of action for the city is to move forward and have an up or down vote on this settlement, and then let Judge Nestor make that determination.
That was an excellent way to avoid the question. Thank you. I was told by my citizen that called that they were concerned about we having a meeting tonight, at least what Mr. Thuman told him, because if this passes, that we would that would be cut in stone, and they couldn't go forward with any further opportunity to have their day in court. But that Judge Nestor, in fact, is still going to allow them to proceed. And so maybe I didn't get it correct from him, but I hope that's the case. I think as a citizen, they should have a right to pursue it, but that's my personal view. But thank you for your help.
It was a busy day.
I bet.
Any other comments before we make a motion, or I guess we.
Chris?
Yes.
Chris,
Mr. Fisher.
I would like to make the motion to add the changes to the agreement.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Fishesher, seconded by Ms. Edichico, to incorporate the changes into the final draft
As read.
settlement.
Chris,
Yes.
you can have a vote on that, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll take a roll call on that.
This is only to make the changes that
Accept the
Ron has put in, which I think makes our position, which I hope this doesn't pass, but it would make our position in a better, we would be in a better, at least, position of being able to pursue it. So that's just so I understand what we're doing. Thank you.
I'll take a roll call on that motion in second by Mr. Fishesher and Ms. Edichico.
Mr. Powell,
Abstain because of conflict of interest.
Mr. Gertz,
I'll vote yes to the changes.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
Yes.
Mr. Fishesher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
That motion
Make a
passed.
motion to, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution and contract.
I'll second.
That'll be adopting as amended, just to clarify.
As amended.
Adopted as amended, and it's the settlement, not the contract, correct? Or are they
It is
the,
a settlement. It is a contract.
okay?
Discussion before we vote?
You're voting on the resolution to adopt, correct?
Right, resolution to adopt.
Correct.
Mr. Gertz, did you have something?
Yes, I absolutely do not agree with this resolution. Although it's well drafted, I have a lot of respect for it. And I think the city is going in the wrong direction here and setting a very bad precedent. I feel that the approach that has been taken by the school board is close to extortion because of the way they approach the TIF financing. We already, we're led to believe like the city has not done, the city portion of our money has not been used to support the development and or the school system, but we've got, as I thank Sabrina, she sent over information. We have made major improvements to Benson Street, Columbia Avenue, new traffic controls, new poles for the traffic controls, new improvements to Balser Drive. We are indebted to the tune of about $800,000 to $900,000 that we put there that we, and that's what we all agreed to do. But that's $800,000 or $900,000 for other paving and improvements or road improvements that could have gone throughout the rest of the community. I think it's been brought out that there is a contingency fund somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 that the school does have in their development of this. And I understand that there are other possibilities that the state has contingency funds, and even the contractor may have that. And they could go back upon that money and pay for this as they agreed to originally. There has been no real amendment to this development. Even though they signed a contract to do it, and it is a development. And in the development, it would be my understanding that under the PDD, all of the utility poles are part of removal, and all of the lines are supposed to be underground. Even though I think 2 of the poles that are still existing that we're talking about that are going to, if this passes, that they will stay, are still going to remain in the right of way. With the one pole on Balser Drive, actually, the original crosswalk was there. One of the arguments is that we should maintain the crosswalk. First of all, it was never that large of a pole that had the crosswalk there. And now that there's no Hilltop School, I think the safety department and the safety service director could investigate whether there's even a need for a crosswalk at that point anymore. It's discouraging to me that the school employed the former superintendent to the tune of $1,000 a month, somewhere in the neighborhood of $40,000 to be a project manager on this. And I think the ball was dropped by them, and now we're going to get burnt for 25 grand. And people were told, all of the citizens that came to meetings all the way back into 2017 were constantly told that these were temporary and they were going to all come down. And now it's a position where they're going to come down, but we're being eaten alive for another 25 grand. There is a pending action by some citizens relative to this, and I hope that they continue to go forward. It's nothing to do with me, but nevertheless, these people, I believe, I know the one of them, I don't know who the other resident was, that lives in that neighborhood, been looked upon as they're being unreasonable, but their subdivision was developed in such a way that all the utilities would be to the rear of their property. And if we followed the original, and of course, I do have another resolution, which I asked to be tabled last night, but it would have the utilities all be underground on the original line of the easement that existed originally for this subdivision to the rear of, and it would run under the parking lot, would be to the rear of the property that originally affronted Balser Drive. It is a situation where I hope that, I hope that the citizens prevail and are successful in requiring that the proper installation and underground utilities be completed. It's been said that there's overhead utilities all over town. Well, that may be true. Where I live down here, it was built in about 1890, and I don't even know if they had any utilities of that consequence. And yes, they're overhead. But any new construction that we put in, new subdivisions where Eagle View and Maplewood and many of these other subdivisions are all underground utilities. And I believe that I'm not an expert, but I did talk to a former client of mine, or he's a present client of mine, he's a former owner of a line company that our line crews that made installations. Now he does like to work overhead because that's what he did. But I think if truth be known that underground utilities are safer and better than overhead. I don't, I'm not an expert, as I said, but that's what I have gathered from the ones that I have talked to. So I would hope that council would view this in a way that we have a contract that was made with us. That contract was never that contract was never amended. It's a development plan. It was never passed by council to amend it. A majority of council voted previously not to amend it. And I would hope that council would see this, that we need to be consistent. So I don't know what we're trying to get a development up in the north end, a former PNC property many years ago called Carlisle Chemical. Now, what would prevent them if they want to come in and put in some other kind of utilities after they make a proposal? And we say, well, no, we can't do that. We only do it for other public agencies. So I hope council views this from that perspective and we don't pass this resolution tonight.
Chris, comment?
What'd you say, Don?
I asked Chris if I could make a comment.
Oh.
He's on mute. Thank you, Chris. I'm not sure why we have to rush into this, like Mr. Gertz pointed out, as far as how much time is on, how much water has gone under the bridge since this came up, and it was pointed out that the utilities should be underground and poles went up and so on and so forth. I'm not sure here all of a sudden at the last minute now we have to have an emergency meeting to decide this. It seems a little odd to me. And by the way, I didn't receive my notice until 20 minutes to 9 last night. And actually it was delivered by the president of council. So I didn't get my 24-hour notice, but
I believe
that,
12. I believe it's a 12-hour notice.
is it? Okay.
12 hours, not 24.
Oh.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Learned something. Okay. I just don't understand why we had to do it this way. I hope the council will do the right thing and vote correctly, knowing the right thing to do at this point. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I have a motion made by Mr. Fischescher, seconded by Ms. Edichico to adopt the resolution. I'd like a roll call, please.
Mr. Powell,
Abstain because of conflict of interest.
Mr. Gertz,
No.
Mr. Lynn,
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht,
Yes.
Mr. Lindeman,
No.
Mr. Fischescher,
Yes.
Mrs. Edichico.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted. And the resolution number?
2021R or 07R.
Now, anyone who needs to sign this, Mr. Braun, will you be taking care of that?
Yeah, we'll follow your normal procedure. We'll get them signed.
Okay.
Joe, just a last question for public notice and for myself again. Typically, an ordinance requires 5 votes, but this is a resolution, so it does not require that. That's your interpretation of the law, if I understand it correctly. It's not
Yeah.
an emergency.
In order to pass, it requires a majority of the elected members of council.
But it's not a under an ordinance to make it an emergency measure, it goes into immediately, but if it were an ordinance, it'd be 30 days before it became law, but you said it was a resolution, so it immediately becomes law.
That is correct.
That's unfortunate.
Any other comments before we adjourn? Then this meeting is.
Joe, I want to thank you for all you've done.
Yeah, Joe. Mr.
Thank
Braun.
you. Like I said, it was a whirlwind of a day, and but I appreciate city administration, which worked with me on at the last minute putting all the exhibits and stuff together for the hearing with only 2 hours notice. So thank you.
Thank you.